Hi there, my name is Deli, and if you haven't known yet, mid-ranges are coming up. So the Guildmaster of Reeves, which is me, the Kingdom one, and all your local ones have put together a tournament test to see if we can help with the reaving situation in Northreach. If you don't know, you can look on our Kingdom Facebook page, and there'll be a link to the tournament, which someone by the name of Deli posted. Go ahead and check it out. I encourage you guys to try this test at least once. At the very end of the test, it'll give you a list of things that you did correctly, did incorrectly. It's the same 25 questions, just in a different order that I'll give it to you. So if you fail the first time, you can screenshot all the answers and you can just take it again. All right. I want to give you guys as many resources as possible to be successful in taking this test. And even if you pass with like a 76%, right, just above the mark, I'd prefer if you look at which ones you got wrong to see what the Guildmaster of Reeves, like our council, is expecting out of our Reeves when we're in a tournament situation, because it's kind of different than a battle game. Our priorities are a little different. So what this video is intended to do is supposed to be a resource for you guys. Um, People don't read things very often, I've noticed. Like the combat rules, about half the questions referenced in here. It's just 2 pages out of the rulebook. Um, so I'd rather make a video because I don't know, people like videos. Maybe a change of pace a little bit. So I'm gonna go question by question why we made this question. I only got 30 minutes to try to explain them, so I might rush through them a little bit. But hopefully I can answer any questions that you might have or have already asked me. Yeah, so let's get started. Oh, and if you have other questions, feel free to ask. Comment below or whatever. It's always great when people are interested in the Reeves test. Anyway, let's start off. How far away should fighters start before you tell them to lay on? Lay on in Amtgard is like start sort of thing. There's a core theory whenever you're refereeing a situation is the referee should never change the outcome of the match, right? And in this situation, let's say I have a big pole arm and my opponent has like a dagger, right? If we start our people in a range where the dagger person can hit the person with a pole arm, right? We've given an unfair advantage there. Alternatively, if we put them just enough range where the pole can hit them and they aren't out of range, we've given the pole arm an advantage. So it's important we have both players outside of each other's range before we start. Now, 50 yards is ridiculously large, but just out of a single step and a single hit. What we don't want happening is saying, lay on, psh, oh, it's over, and one person paid attention to one different. What I like to do is I like to say, touch tips when you're ready to represent both players are okay with playing, and then take a step back. And then when I feel like they're far enough away, I'll say lay on, right? And that's generally how I like to do it. But anyway, where we can start people without giving one or another person unfair advantage. So just outside of both players being able to hit after taking a small step. Question two. Hopefully I get all these right. It'd be embarrassing if I didn't. Uh, a dead leg can be wounded if. Um, so how legs work in Amtgard is when your leg is wounded, if you don't have any sort of safety issue, which we're indoors, I will give everyone uh, fair grounds not to drop their knees onto laminate flooring if they don't want to. But all of them must bring their knee to the ground. And while it's going to the ground, it's safe from hits. All right. Once that knee comes off the ground, then it can be hit. So like if I'm crawling and my right knee is dead and it comes off the ground, as soon as it lifts off the ground and it gets hit, that's a legal shot. That's a second wound to the dead leg, which is a death, right? So if someone fails to drop to their knee, which is whether it's been a reasonable amount of time, like it's been like 2 seconds, they haven't dropped yet, or if they just call posting, that would also kill them. Or if they lift the knee off the ground whenever they're trying to crawl. So both questions are or the person's dead. Anyway, question three. What are unacceptable things to say as a Reeve during the tournament? So this is behavioral stuff. as a Reeve, as a referee, your goal is to look impartial, right? You're trying to make the person who performed the best on that day win, right? So any sort of thing that you do or say that changes that impartial, anyway, just looking impartial, um, is bad, right? So making jokes about players is unacceptable. We shouldn't be doing that. Uh, Complimenting one person over the other makes us look biased towards that person. So I'm not going to compliment someone's fighting. All right. Giving people advice goes back to me, interfering with the combat. But compliments to fighters' shot calling is something that I would actually encourage Reeves to do. All right. It's think like if I see someone take a shot that I didn't see, I'll say good take, good honor. I'm trying to make these as simple and short as possible because, saying things interferes with the fight, right? People are trying to contradict, people are trying to compete. I shouldn't be saying anything, any of these three things. But compliments to players' shot calling, that's great. Please do that. Which of these locations are valid locations for a torso shot? All right, so um, this might surprise you, but all of these are torso shots except for the vertical rise of the neck. All right, so the groin area, the bottom of the butt, the collarbone, the hip socket, and the shoulders are all legal hit locations of the torso. Um, right when it starts dropping would be where it starts becoming arm. And if I hold on to that and lift it up, it changes, but it's the same point. Uh, right where the neck starts going up, that's when we start calling head. The collarbone is completely illegal, but right above that is not. And then how the hips and legs work is if you can feel the hip socket bone, at least I can, goes straight line to the groin, stays underneath the butt, and then has like a diagonal upward vertical back to the hip. And that's hard to call when people are like crouching or kneeling or whatever. But those are good things to know. What's a torso shot? All of these things except for the vertical rise. Question 5. How's my time doing? Oh, shoot. All right. On which location can the arm can fighters? So what's arm when people have some sort of equipment in their hand, right? So fingertips, hand on weapon, hand on weapon still, wrist, wrist would be arm still, and then forearm and then upper arm. All right. So people misunderstand this. Wrist is considered right here is about the line of hand on weapon to arm, but hitting the wrist is considered an arm shot. And this is just verbatim out of the rulebook. Continue on. At the end of each round as a Reeve, it's your responsibility. So this is important. Miscommunication happens all the time. Two people might interact with each other, step out, and they both think they've won, and then you start the next round, and then they don't know that they're 1-0. They think they're 0-1. 0-1. So it's important after every round I say, look, player A won, explain the outcome. So why did player A won? Player A won because they got torso shot, right? And then I'll explain like if there's some miscellaneous stuff like this shot here was blocked or this shot here was late or whatever it is, explaining why it's not a SIMO, or maybe it is a SIMO, explaining why it is a SIMO. And then I'm going to announce the points. I'm going to say, okay, now it's 1-0. Now it's 2-0. This person's won, or 1-1. Next point wins. I like to explain like it's 2 out of 3 every time, or if it's 3 out of 5, because sometimes it changes whether it's the winner's bracket or not. So explaining that. And then again, please don't compliment fighters on their fighting abilities, because that's inappropriate. Bam, question 7. Who is the highest authority to make calls in a tournament? There's a lot of questions here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but in general, you as the Reeve in that pit, and if you have multiple people, usually you pick like a head Reeve or the person who's more confident in this situation. The head Reeve is the highest authority to making shot callers. It's not one of the fighters. It's not anyone on the sideline booing you. It's not even the tournament organizer or me as your Kingdom GMR, or even the Queen. All right, your local monarch can kick you out of the event, but can't make calls for you. All right. So when we're in a tournament, doesn't matter who's on the field, who's off the field. You're the highest authority. So the head Reeve. Bam. Question 8. A fighter is dead if. All right. So this is an interesting conversation. My sword's coming, and it deflects off the torso into my face, or it deflects off my face into my torso, or if it hits both at the same time. So swords have a thickness, right? If it hits both, it contacts with both of them at the same time. In which of these scenarios am I dead? Right? So headshots are illegal in Amtgard. So if a shot hits me in the head, anything else within that same shot doesn't count. All right, you're not allowed to gain any combat advantage. All right, and that includes if you hit me in the face and I'm like dazed and like falling over, sort of thing, and then I get hit in the torso. It doesn't count. All right, but and that's the same thing if it hits both the head and the torso at the same time. Doesn't count. All right, someone stabs me and it hits my throat and a little bit on my collarbone. Doesn't count. All right, but if it ricochets off my torso into my face, or like a lot of times stabs will hit someone in the torso and then slide up. Right, that still counts, right? Because that's deflecting off of the torso. It's a torso shot, and then it becomes an illegal shot. So if it deflects off of the torso into the neck, it counts as a dead or a legal shot. What warrants you to disqualify someone from a tournament? It is unacceptable for any fighter. I don't care how much experience you have. In fact, my tolerance for it is probably lower for if you have more experience. It's not okay for a fighter to not listen to your instruction, slough shots repeatedly and intentionally. It's not okay for a fighter to be unsafe in any manner. They're not allowed to argue with you or violate any of the code of conduct of our rule book. All right, so all these things you can kick out. We wanted to put this in here though. Players can clarify. I ask you to clarify things. What's the score? Like, why'd you call the shot? Why'd you say I'm dead? Sort of thing. That's perfectly fine. But if they start arguing with you, if they even start like calling you names, just kick them off the field. It's not appropriate and not allowed. You see a fighter get hit by a valid shot, and then you make a call. What can change your opinion? So let's say they're fighting. I say, boom, shot to the torso, or you're dead, or whatever. I make a call, right? And maybe I make it off of an iffy situation. I just need to make a confident call that I believe is most likely the correct answer. Who can change my opinion on that situation? The other Reeve in my pit can do that because they have similar authority. Maybe they saw so maybe I said, oh, that was a block there, right? And my Reeve on the other side says, no, I saw contact to the hip. That counts, right? So they can change my opinion. Also, the person who threw the shot can change my opinion. So if, let's say I'm fighting somebody, right? And I swing and I hit the shield, and my Reeve says, shot to the arm, take it. It's my responsibility as a fighter to say, I didn't hit him. And you as a Reeve should believe me because I'm doing the honorable thing. I'm telling you something that doesn't give me advantage, that gives me a disadvantage, right? I'd rather take the arm as a fighter, honestly. But if I make an honorable call, you can respect that. But if, I do the same situation and my opponent says, no, that didn't hit me, nothing he can say can change your opinion on if that was illegal or not, unless you ask them directly because you were unsure or whatever. But after you make a call, that person can't change your opinion no matter what. All right? Could you imagine if we were playing like basketball or something and you called like foul, or I don't know anything about basketball, but I'm just going to get this out. You call a foul on somebody and then they start arguing with the Reeve, and the Reeve's like, or the referee was like, yeah, you're right, and then like took it back. Nevertheless, once you make a call, it's pretty final unless something comes up, and that doesn't happen with arguing. All right. So the other Reeve, people on the sideline. I put this everywhere, but don't listen to them. They don't. They're like 50 feet away. All right, they don't know nothing. Through the shot. There we go. Oh, I gotta go faster. A slash requires what to count as a valid hit. This is just from the rulebook, rules of play. Must make contact with strike legal. No pommel hitting people. Must be percussive, even if it's the lightest sound ever. Or if you have like a garb piece that makes it less not percussive, would also count. Or it must stop or deflect. Just move just a little bit. 1 degree. That's all it requires. Very little amount, but is required. On what locations of the leg can be wounded if their foot is planted on the ground. So this is dealing with foot on ground. Toes and foot are foot on ground. The ankle, which includes that little ball on the inside of your foot, that would be your leg. I see a lot of confusion about this, especially in battle games, especially with pole arms. Most people's swords are thicker than the distance from the ball of the foot to the bottom of the foot. So if someone hits like heel and at an angle, that shot's probably leg, unless some crazy circumstance happens, unless it touches like the front of the foot or something. But if it's pretty deep there, that's probably a leg shot, and they should take it as such. So the ankle counts as foot on ground, or counts as not foot on ground, counts as leg in all situations. Anyway, next. Question 13, halfway done, halfway with the time. We're doing great, guys. Head blocking is allowed in Amcard combat. What is head blocking? This is a weird question. I've never been in a situation as a fighter or as a Reeve where I've had to say in combat or in a tournament setting, hey, you can't block with your head, or here's a warning for head blocking. Head blocking is really hard, and it requires you to acknowledge the person throwing a shot to a location, move your head in that location, and then get hit in the head intentionally, right? Usually the only time I'll ever see this is with like throwies or like arrows or something like really, really slow or something really, really long, right? Like a pole arm or something. People are allowed to move erratically and acknowledge that they're probably going to get hit in the face because they're moving so weird. But what they can't do is intentionally move their head in a way of a shot after they see it's coming. So it's like reactively, right? You're not allowed to reactively move your head in the way to get hit. All right? It's probably never going to show up, but it's good to acknowledge that it may exist. Bam. Question 14. Which of the following contact is acceptable? I'm not allowed to touch people's shields with my hands. I'm not allowed to grapple them, sadly. I'm not allowed to hit somebody with my shield, but what I am allowed to do is move their shield with my shield, as long as I don't like push them over or move their body. Like, for instance, you'll see a lot of times people use the inside of the shield and pull sort of thing. That's perfectly fine. A little bit of movement, that's fine, as long as contact doesn't involve body to body or body to shield. If you as a Reeve affect the outcome of a match. All right, so this comes back to what I said in the beginning, that you as a referee are not supposed to affect the outcome of the match, right? But it happens occasionally, right? Like, let's say they stop combat and I start talking to them and I say, hey, I need to clarify the situation, da da da, and then he gets hit. Or if maybe I'm standing too close and the guy like runs into me and then gets hit. Or maybe it's backwards, like maybe he runs into me and the other guy like drops, like, oh shoot, and then he gets hit, right? Like, there are situations that will exist that I can't explain all, but if any situation where you affect the outcome of the match, you need to make it right, right? Like, the best thing to do in this situation, revert the situation back to before you affected the match, right? So what I would say is like, I'm sorry, player A who killed player B. I'm sorry, player A, for interfering, but he got hit because he ran into me. I affected this match. I'm going to have to put it back before then. Usually I'm going to say I'm sorry because that sucks for the person who won, right? Because he feels like he's a super, BA fighter and got him or whatever. But I need to make it as fair as possible. So I'm going to undo the wound, reset the scenario before he's affected, and then resume on. Shot is still in time after fighter is dead, less wounded, only if this happens. So two things are required, too, for something to be in time, right? Like Simo, right? The first one is they can't make any new movements, right? So like with a stab, they're gonna have to start their stab, start the beginning of their step before they hit, and they're not allowed to like twist or move or fake or anything like that. Chops are the same way. They have to start doing their chop, start doing their step or whatever it is before they got hit. Wraps are a little harder because we're moving. How do I get this in frame? We're moving, right? And then towards the end of the movement, they're going to do like a twisting motion. So it looks almost like a chop. It looks almost like a chop, and then they're going to twist. They're going to have to start that twist before they get hit, right? So, boom, that'll be in time. That wouldn't, right? And that's hard to keep track of. What I like to do is I will do exactly what I did. I'll do my hand motions to figure out what it is, and that's only because I have like a little bit of experience in fighting. Um, but if you don't, a good indicator is like where's my thumb in the motion, right? I got hit here, right? And then when I landed, my hand's like this, right? So obviously there's some sort of twisting. Was it before or after? You got to make a call on that. But they're not allowed to like make any sort of new movement, and it has to be within half a second. Half a second's a really long time in fighter land, all right? I'm almost never calling something not late or calling something late because of this. All right, it's usually always about this. All right, next. Fire changes sword hands or drops to the knees without being hit. When there's break up action, what should I do? So people drop to the knees a lot randomly, or they'll switch hands. I know, like I like to hand match, so I'll switch hands without my arm being broken. Um, it's important that you clarify the situation to both players that this person is not wounded, he's just switching arms, right? Because we don't want a situation where someone like trades because they think someone's armed when they're not. If engagement happens with Reeve, you don't fully understand what happened, you don't have another Reeve in your pit, what's your best option? Never redo a match if you don't have to. What I'm going to do is ask people the little areas that I don't understand. So I understand shot here, block. Here was an arm. Shot there didn't count. But I didn't understand these two things, right? I'm going to ask those specific things before I say anything else, and then I'm going to explain the shot. So I'm going to ask questions, specific questions, and then make a call. The fighter is unsure if a shot was valid or not, right? You ask them, hey, did this hit you in the shoulder? And they're like, I'm not sure. It did. And that's out of the rule book, and that's hard to make a call on. But the thing is that people shouldn't have a combat advantage for not knowing the rules. So it is. How should we escalate an issue with a fighter intentionally sloughing throughout a tournament? So this happens not just with sloughing. This is like intentionally being unsafe or any sort of code of conduct issue. First thing we need to do is correct the situation, acknowledge that it exists, right? You're hitting the right arm, please call your shots, right? None of this part is emotional, none of this part is demeaning, just saying you're hitting the right arm, you know, you lost your right arm. So that's step one. Step two, we're going to issue a warning. That's our keyword for if you do this again, we're going to disqualify you from the tournament. That's what warning is going to mean universally. You got hitting the right arm. This is a warning about your shot calling. And then if it happens again, I'm going to disqualify them from the tournament. And say, please, you have to leave for not taking your shots when to player B or whatever. And this is hard to do. It's really hard to do, but it's crucial to prevent these type of things in the future. And it's important that we universally use the same type of language in correcting a situation like this. If things are more serious, or we think they're intentional, or they're happening from a experienced player, we might skip these steps, right? Like, for instance, if I'm being intentionally unsafe to people, like I just rack someone in the head, uncalled for, no, nothing was open up high, I just rack him in the face, maybe you just disqualify me from the tournament straight up. Or you might just give me a warning. It's perfectly fine to skip these steps. If you feel like you need to, or if the situation is more, or calls for or something. Boom. A fighter's hit in both a non-valid legal hit location and a valid hit location at the same time. What happened? So let's say I have a shield up, and it hits both my shield and my shoulder at the same time, or hand on my hand on weapon, it hits both my wrist and my hand at the same time. All right, it's a valid shot to the arm, it's a valid shot to the hand at the same time, so we're counting them as both. Right, hits both my arms at the same time, both arms are gone. So shot is not blocked, fighter's wounded. Uh, it's good to note though, it's an illegal hit location like the face. Um, Boom, he gets hits both. We're counting as illegal because it's an illegal hit location. You're not allowed to hit there. You're allowed to hit people in the hand. That's perfectly fine, perfectly legal. Hit both. We're counting as both. So it's an arm. Fire's still wounded. Oh no, my headset's dying on me. Hopefully I can finish this fast enough. All right. After any tournament's ended, what should you do? This is another gimme free question for you. But after a tournament's over, recommend everyone in the tournament for a Griffin Award who deserved it, because that's really important. It's one of the under awarded awards in all of Amtgard, I would say, and you have firsthand experience with all of them, not only on their shot calling, but also how they interact with you. So it's very valuable as monarchs to receive that information. So I would make a list right after the tournament, write it down, and send them in. Stab requires what? Tip of the weapon is the only thing that can make a stab, which is the farthest part from the pommel, and then it must stop or deflect. All right, but it doesn't have to be percussive. The only thing percussive about stabs is the other guy going, ooh, and that's it. What is not one of is another give me one. All right, so three most important values of a Reeve or a referee or whatever is they communicate, they're consistent, and they're confident. Not being crabby. If you realize what's not on there is like knowing the rules. Like I'd rather someone be confident, communicate, and consistent than I would have someone who really knows the rules but isn't confident in calling anything, isn't consistent, and doesn't communicate or anything like that. So there we go. Next. Last question. What will result in a death? Shot to the torso. That kills someone. Who knew? 2 wounds to different limbs is also a kill shot. And 2 wounds to the same limb also kills somebody. I had a question about this. 2 shots to the same limb doesn't always kill somebody because, like, leg on ground, or a dead leg on dead knee on ground, isn't. But if you wound the same wound when twice, it does kill someone. Let's take arms for example. If someone hits me in the arm and hits me in the arm again, it's not a shot to the torso. It's 2 shots to the same arm, which kills you. All right, finish now. What I get? Oh, 100%. Oh yeah, I did it. All right. Anyway, if you have any more questions, contact your local GMR. Contact me. Do whatever. It's up to you. Anyway, my headset's gonna fail me soon. Good night, Northreach. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.